Awesome, great.
Wonderful.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. It's very nice to meet you all. My name is Mack. I'm the commercial director at Musiio. Essentially, what my role is, I take anybody that's looking to learn a little bit more about the technology. I take them through from that first point of contact and the education stage right through to integrating the product. So essentially, that's what I want to do with you guys today. So hopefully by the end of this session, you'll know a little bit more about Musiio. You'll learn a lot more about AI, and you'll also learn about some of the ways, the cool and creative ways our technology is being used by customers around the world. So hopefully it's an exciting one. And we won't be making it too salesy. We've got some demos to throw in there as well. But I'll pass over to Will to intro.
Hi, everybody. Can you see us okay, or are we just getting screen share at this point? Maybe I'll just pause the screen share for a second then. Okay, we will turn that off somehow. Okay, super. Hi, everyone. I'm Will. I'm Will Betts. I'm senior content strategist at Musiio by SoundCloud. I look after our contents. That's our blog content. I work on press releases and when we're launching new features and new products. And my background is in music technology journalism, so I'm working with Musiio to help them communicate the benefits of the technology. And Mack is going to lead the way on this talk, but then I'm going to bring in some interesting ways in which our customers have made cool products with the technology that we can provide to power the back end. So I'm going to bring the screen share back. Here we go. Over to you, Mack.
Thank you so much. So a little bit about Musiio, first of all. So Musiio was launched in January of 2018. And it was launched by Hazel Savage and Aaron Peterson. Hazel has spent 15 or 16 years in the music industry. She started life at HMV, stacking shelves, actually, putting music on the shelves at HMV. And she would put around maybe about 20 tracks on a weekly basis onto the shelves at HMV. She actually, after that, went to Shazam, Universal, Pandora, and then a bunch of music tech businesses before launching Musiio. And what she recognized during that time was the massive increase in volume of music being added to music catalogs and to the internet every single day. I'm sure you've all seen reports that there's over 100,000 tracks added to music services every single day. And Hazel recognized that as a problem in the industry that would no doubt need solving for music catalogs. So she partnered with Aaron, who is our CTO. And Aaron has been building machine learning and AI-based products in the finance and gaming space for about 16 or 17 years now. And they basically got together and decided that there was the volume issue in the music industry could actually be supported and helped with AI and machine learning. Back in the early days, one of the things that they were trying to do, so I actually worked with Hazel at a previous music tech startup. And essentially what that startup would get is they'd get a bunch of tracks that are added to their platform on a daily basis by creators. And the platform was kind of a little bit like GarageBand. So you would get a real mix of quality, would you say, with the music. So it'd be quite entry-level music, but sometimes you would get real gems in that music. So we had a curator that would listen through all of the music, and then anytime he heard anything good, he would add it to a playlist. Some weeks we would have a great playlist, but then weeks would go by sometimes where we would have absolutely no playlists at all to show for his time and efforts. So he would put the same amount of time and effort in, but he would get sometimes really poor results out. So there would just be no music for him to playlist. So Hazel recognized this as quite a unique problem, and this is what she wanted to do. She wanted to understand whether a machine could essentially do that first listen and separate whether something sounded good from something that didn't sound so good. So this is what the problem she came to Aaron with. Aaron did a bunch of testing, and after initial tests, they found it couldn't just do that, but it could do a lot more. So the products that we built today are fundamentally built on this general idea, but have been applied in many different ways. So in terms of our customers, we've got a range of different customers that we currently work with. And these range from BeatStars, who are a beats marketplace based out of the US with 20,000 tracks added to their platform on a daily basis, to Epidemic Sound, who you're probably very aware of, are a sync music website for video creators, and Downtown Music Services, who are using our technology to respond to sync briefs. So they'll have somebody contact them with a piece of music and say, do you have something that sounds similar to this piece of music? So all of these businesses are using the technology in many different ways. And we actually have 75 clients, over 75 clients in 11 different countries. And we've actually tagged or processed over 500 million tracks to date using our technology. And there's about 5,000 audio reference searches happen every single day. So if the question that you came with today was, is AI the future of the music industry? I'd just like to tell you that it's actually already here, and you've probably somehow already interacted with AI, and maybe some of Musiio's AI as well. So Will, you had a little point first before I jump into the demos about what our technology isn't, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the big thing to be aware of here is that what we're doing is not generative. So there's been a lot of talk about generative AI recently. Obviously, I'm sure you've all used ChatGPT. I'm sure you've tried out all of the various AI music creation tools, but we don't see the generation side as being a problem. The problem that Musiio identified was that there's not enough context for the music that's already being created. Like, there are hundreds of thousands of tracks going live every week on streaming services. The big problem is people being able to find that music made by real people who want to make music because it's art, right? We're not trying to solve the creation side. So we're just trying to solve the part of getting people, listeners, to get to listen to cool new music by artists, human artists. So yeah, back to you, Mack.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. So we're going to jump right into the demos now, because these are the exciting parts of the technology. So first of all, how does it work? So essentially what we do is we take audio files themselves and we turn those audio files into a series of mathematical transformations or spectrograms. Almost like highly detailed heat maps of the tracks, but we for each individual track we have a series of those spectrograms, and then essentially what we do is we take those spectrograms and we compare them with everything the AI has learned and been taught in the past, and we do a comparative analysis, and then the AI is able to make a prediction on the basis of everything that it's heard before. So essentially, once we've trained the AI, it can actually predict what the music is with about a 90% probability, which is a very high accuracy from a tagging perspective. But what this means is that we can create metadata from fresh just with the audio files. So we're not depending on where the metadata currently lives. We often find that when we're looking through catalogs, there's metadata that's missing, it's outdated, it's been mistagged, it's just generally incorrect, or it's been handed to like an intern and not really been given the time and love that it should have been done. But with our AI, we can take multiple catalogs and we can essentially create a web of really rich music-based metadata, which can be great for searching and finding new music. So we're going to jump right into a demo now and show you exactly how it works. But what you can do is both these demos are actually live. If you go to tag.musiio.com, you can do it on your phones or open up a tab and drop in some music and give it a go while we're speaking to you now. It's really easy to use, but we've got one preloaded here. So this is the tag page here. So we're essentially the music tagging. We've got Aretha Franklin, It Ain't Necessary, the track. So I'm sure you've all got a rough idea about how this music sounds without even listening to it. So essentially what we've done is we've dropped in the audio file, we've turned it into spectrograms, we've compared it with everything the AI has been taught in the past, and then the AI spits out tags. And these are the results that you see here. So if we go from left to right here, we see the content type is music. The genre is soul and early soul, not really surprising for Aretha Franklin. This is picking from about 84 genres in total. So it's basically whittled it down and it said, this sounds most like soul and early soul with a 96 and 97% confidence. It's saying the energy is medium on the energy spectrum, and that the energy has a small variance. So it's saying that the energy remains consistent throughout the lifetime of the track. Now, if you start to think about this from a playlisting perspective, for example, that can be great information. You don't want to mix a lot of really consistent sounding tracks with tracks that have a lot of peaks and troughs. Or you might want to for certain playlists, but having that ability to see that metadata really helps you from a playlisting perspective. Now, when we go to moods, we see that it's soulful, melancholy, seductive. Soulful is probably no surprise for Aretha Franklin. We probably expect every single track to be soulful from Aretha Franklin, but where it gets interesting is where it's saying melancholy, where it's saying seductive. These are extra data points that help us to understand, okay, well, if we think about Aretha Franklin, sometimes she's going to have stuff that's really exciting and really upbeat and like quite intense on one side, and then stuff that's more chilled and melancholy on another. So this information is really good to know from a playlisting perspective. We're not just adding ad nauseum every single Aretha Franklin track, we're specifying what kind of Aretha Franklin tracks we want as part of a playlist. From the emotion perspective, it's saying it's neutral on the emotion spectrum, and it's pulled out these instruments. So it's recognizing that there's percussion in there, there's piano, beats, keys, and brass. So if you imagine that this information could be used on a sync website like Epidemic Sound, perhaps you want to make a video and you want to make sure that it's soulful, but it also includes piano. Now you can start to select these and start to filter the music based on that information. What we also give you is a bunch of vocal tags. So we're telling you that it's a vocal track, hardly surprising with Aretha Franklin. It sounds like female. We could also tell you that it's an instrumental track and that it has no vocal whatsoever. We could also tell you that it sounds like a female, a male, or a mixed vocal. Actually, artists like Bruno Mars or Michael Jackson come out as male and female because they sound almost like both vocal registers. They're hitting those higher notes and hitting those registers. But again, that's really good information if you're automating or you're creating playlists or curating. It's saying that the vocal presence is high. So the vocal is present throughout the lifetime of the track. Again, really good information for playlisting. And it's saying that the vocal is a natural sounding vocal as well. So rather than having a high auto-tune presence, Aretha obviously has gone very natural with her vocal. Why would she need auto-tune, right? But even with a piece of information like that, it's like if you are a sync company and somebody has come to you and they are like maybe an organic foods brand, they come to you and they want a soulful kind of track, but they want to make sure that it's actually quite natural to fit their brand. All of these extra data points really help you to be able to whittle down a catalog search with many different things in mind. It's saying that the track is of medium quality. So usually we find that tracks come out as having a medium quality if they're from like the 60s or 70s. If this track had been remastered, it would come up as like a higher quality. And the quality, what we have a tendency to say to music catalogs is this isn't necessarily something that you would publish online. You wouldn't tell people, hey, this music is high quality or whatever it might be. You might just have a flag. So anytime an artist supplies you with, for example, the low quality audio file, and they send that one through, you can automatically send them a response and say, hey, did you know you sent us the low quality version of this track? Just for an example. It's saying this track is in F major. The tempo is 87 beats per minute with a small variance, and then a use case or context or another playlist that this could sit inside is a retro sounding playlist. So that's great. Obviously, from a like just a processing perspective, the amount of time it would take to add all of this metadata, it solves that problem for customers. But when you look at all of the metadata and creative ways to use this metadata, if you think, for example, you wanted to create a Sunday soul sessions playlist, essentially you could pull different parts of the metadata that you see here and create that playlist. So you might go, we might take the soulful, we might take low and medium energies, we might take maybe the melancholy mood for that like Sunday session sort of feeling. You might want to go vocal and a high presence of vocal. And essentially this is how our technology is being used. It's not just being used to tag the music and removing that annoying task. It's also being used to automate those types of playlists. And now that we're a part of SoundCloud, this is how we're integrating on their side and helping them to automate some of their playlists as well. So the next piece of technology, I hope you all liked that, is search. This for me is the reason I joined Musiio. As soon as I found out about search, I was like absolutely obsessed. As a DJ for my entire adult life, I have searched many music catalogs, from vinyl stores to online music sites, and it's always tough. And it's always quite a laborious task of listening. And what I found was just before I joined Musiio, I was listening to maybe 20 hours of music, just listening one by one through tracks and not having any like sort of sense as to why I was listening to them. I had a rough idea about the playlists I would listen to, but my idea was if I can listen to like 10,000 tracks and whittle them down to the best 100, that would be a good amount for my set on a Friday or Saturday night. But that amount of listening is really quite stressful, especially when you're doing it every single week. It's really time consuming, really quite difficult. And when I met Hazel and she told me about this piece of technology, the ability to essentially take an audio file, drop it into a search bar and find music that sounded similar, it absolutely blew my mind. I just thought of all of the different use cases for this. And some of our clients are using it in very cool and creative ways, but we're just going to show you how it works. And again, go to the demo, search.musiio.com, try it for yourself, drop in your own tracks, and see how this works. But essentially, for this demo, we've got Beyonce, Run the World. I thought Christina would like this one. So we've got that essentially as the seed track. And what we're doing here, so we take the audio file, we drop it into the search bar, we turn it into spectrograms, and then what it does is it compares those spectrograms with all of the spectrograms in a client's catalog, and then it will reorder the results in terms of audio similarity. So I don't know about you, but if you even think about Run the World, we all know that sound. We all know what the sound is like, but can you describe it? Can you tell me what the genre is? Can you tell me what the mood is? Can you tell me what like all of these different factors are? Can you tell me what that vibe is, what the X factor of this track is? It's really quite difficult to describe, actually, even for a music person. But with this technology, what you can do is you can drop it in, and you can return results in audio similarity. And this is what we've done here. So if you just look at the results,
yep, here we go.
We've got Run the World is actually in this catalog, so that appears first in terms of the results, and then everything below it is in terms of audio similarity in this catalog. So you as the searcher can focus on that music first based on that actual seed track. But then imagine yourself in a situation like Downtown Music Services, for example. They get a request in, so it's an advert. So we've got an advert and we've got the track Run the World. We want that sort of vibe, but we've looked at how much it will cost and it's far too expensive. Do you have anything in the catalogue that sounds similar to that? But also we have a voiceover in the advertisement, so we'd like we'd like a instrumental version of the track. So now when you apply the search technology with the tagging, this is when the power comes in. So it's like, I want an instrumental version of Run the World. And now the results are showing the likes of Selena Gomez, for example. And you can listen to through them, you can audition those tracks, and the music supervisor can choose the best 10 and respond and say, here are some good examples. So essentially what this technology allows people to do is search with the reference track, find the closest audio matches very, very quickly, and really soup up that music search and supercharge it. But how it's also being used, again, is to playlists. So if you see on the right-hand side here, we've got these find similar buttons. This is quite a production and sync music catalog use case. But one of the other use cases would be to have a track radio button next to every single track. So if we wanted to launch tracks similar to this Selena Gomez track, we hit find similar, and in less than 2 seconds we've got a playlist of tracks that sound similar to this track. So it's a really fast way to create these track radio buttons for different use cases. So they're the 2 core pieces of technology. But what I find particularly exciting, I really like the core pieces of technology, but it's with AI, it's the beauty is usually in the application of these pieces of technology. And I'm going to pass to Will now, who's essentially going to go through some different use cases about how these have been applied by our customers. And then we've probably got some questions that we can go through after that. So we'll respond to some of those questions in the comments afterwards. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mack. Now I'm going to rattle through some of these. We've got a whole bunch of, as Mack said, over 75 clients who work with our technology daily. So I'm going to go through a few different examples. We have an A&R use case. We have a playlisting use case. We also have one with a beat marketplace where it's all about volume and increasing catalog navigation, improving catalog navigation. We're going to kick off with Vans. Now, Vans, the shoe brand, every year they do a talent contest, right? They do Musicians Wanted, and they came to us a few years ago because they were having problems. They had 10,000 contestants coming in with their submissions, sending their music in to try and be, elevated by the brand. If they're a good brand fit for Vans, then they would make it to the finalist stage. Okay, so the call went out. All of these musicians from across the Asia Pacific region, they got in touch. They sent their tracks over. This is from Japan, China, Korea, Australia, 13 different countries, and the team that were listening to these tracks, they had 2 weeks to listen to all of them. And I mean, that's a lot of music. That's a lot of music to listen to and try and find the talent in it. And the issue they had, right, before Musiio came along, in that 2 weeks, they were delivered at the beginning of it, a spreadsheet, and it would just have a link to a track to listen to, 10,000 links. And there's no context whatsoever. You could be listening to a hip hop track, then a pop track, a punk track, a rock track you could be listening to. There was no coherence whatsoever. So the Vans team, they worked with Universal in the Asia Pacific region. They were listening one by one. As I say, no context whatsoever. So there's no way of comparing like with like. You couldn't say who's a better hip hop artist in Korea. You couldn't do anything like that because you'd have to have somebody to do a first listen to even tell you what the genre was, right? So they would get to this magic finishing line after 2 weeks where they'd found 5 artists that could make it to the finalist stage. And that's great. Everybody breathed a big sigh of relief because they'd found 5 artists and they were all great. But can we say whether all of the music got listened to by a human? I mean, if it was me, I'm not sure I'd be able to listen to that much music, right? But so they knew they had a problem. So they came to us. What we did with the search dashboard, which is what Mack has just showed you, the submissions came in, they were all dropped into the dashboard. So this immediately, it's better than a spreadsheet because you can search it, right? The dashboard automatically tags everything. So that was the first demo that Mack did, was the tagging. That happens to every single track, every one of these 10,000 tracks that comes in. Suddenly, you have, with the click of a button, you're able to compare all tracks within a single genre, all tracks with a particular mood, right? So you could look at all hip hop tracks from Korea suddenly together and go, oh, of all of those, this is the best artist, move on to the next category. Not that there were categories, but you could immediately do that sort of thing. You could compare like with like. And that was one of the big, powerful things they did with it. What they also asked us to do, because they were in this search dashboard, they'd share with us a playlist from each country, which was made up of music that was resonating in that territory. And it was different for each territory because very different markets, right? Not everybody in each territory is buying Vans, they're not the same type of people necessarily. So what they did, they gave us these playlists that were indicative of music resonating for their ideal audience, right? We used audio reference search to drop in some of these tracks and generate playlists from the submissions. So it just prioritized. So you could drop in, for instance, say they were looking for a pop punk track in Indonesia. They could drop in a pop punk track from Indonesia that had been signed to a major label potentially, drop it in, and then you get all of the tracks that have a similar vibe. And immediately they were able to prioritize those tracks that were most in keeping with their brand sound, right? That could fit with the sonic identity to put across the Vans brand. So, you know, the other thing that it did, and the other thing that our technology could do, right, is because we have the ability to filter out certain kinds of tracks. So we looked at the vocal versus instrumental earlier. If somebody had uploaded the wrong track, say they'd uploaded a version without a vocal, we could immediately take that out because we wanted, Vans wanted strong vocalists. That's part of their brand. It's like, you know, that they want these upfront characters. So you could just immediately eliminate all of those tracks that were not even worth listening to. So we can say with certainty that all of the relevant tracks for Vans did get heard. All of them, first of all, by the AI, but then by a human, they all got heard. The relevant tracks all got heard. And as a testament to how effective this was, the previous years had been running for several years up to this point. They had 5 finalists identified. When they worked with us, because there were so many excellent artists that were uncovered through this process, they had to put 15 finalists through. They made a decision that we've got so much talent here, we can reveal 3 times the number of excellent artists that we're happy to be involved with as a brand, which I thought was amazing. Personally, I thought it was a really, really interesting way of using this technology. And it's as an A&R use case, pretty astounding that you can uncover that much talent so quickly. The next one we're going to look at is, this is a playlisting story. So Beatmix, I don't know, you won't necessarily know this brand, but they do background music for retail. So they work with hotels, gyms, restaurants, pubs, like retail stores. They work with Diesel, the clothing brand, and they understand, this company, that music is a really important part of each brand's identity. I don't know if you've ever been into a shop, a store, and somebody has just had control of the tablet and they're just playing whatever they want. And it's not always a great experience. If you walk in, you're like, oh, I just want to go and buy some trousers or whatever. And then there's like thrash metal playing because somebody thought that was a good idea. And then you're like, do you know what? This is a terrible experience. I'm going to leave. So they've realized that there is a gap in the market for a service to look after the background music for these kinds of businesses. So they consult with the business. They'll go in and say, hey, what's your brand all about? They might talk to a hotel and they go, well, it's a lobby. We want lobby music. We want low energy, jazz, classical, easy listening. We want these sorts of things. We obviously don't want metal in the lobby of the hotel. And so what they're able to do with their expert curation staff. I'm simplifying here. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying for this case, but they're able to create sonic identities for each of these brands, and their curators find the right music. They were doing that really well. They were doing that really well without us, right? They were able to come up with, each week there was new music coming into their system, right? And they would be able to pick out the right tracks. And because all of the people who are working for Beatmix, they're like DJs, they might be music curators themselves of some description. They might be working in radio, they might be working, playing out. But they found that the manual listening process was super slow, and they really wanted to scale the business as well. So they came to us and they were like, what can we do? And what they were able to do with our tagging tech is they built this curation tool. And the curation tool, basically, they could say, an expert curator could come in and go, I've established that brand X, their sound is, it might be easy listening, it might be low energy, it might be between these two specific BPMs, no vocals, for instance. We want all of these attributes in the music that's being played at this particular time of day. And what's interesting with this is that they don't just have, each of these brands don't necessarily just have a morning, like an all-day playlist. They might have a morning playlist, an afternoon playlist, an evening playlist, depending on when the highest moments of footfall are, right? So you might have a higher energy playlist when there's loads of people walking by at the end of the day. So they were able to do all of this, and using our technology, we spoke to them the other day, they are growing their business. They're on the path from 100 clients before they started working with us to 1,000 with AI-assisted music curation for making playlists. Again, that was pretty astonishing, 10xing your business with AI and not displacing any real jobs. And it also means that real musicians are getting in front of more people in each of these retail locations. I thought was super cool. So
awesome. Thanks very much for that, Will. So I believe we've got like a minute left, and there's loads of questions in the
all right.
Loads of questions to get to in the chat. But if you do have any questions, we did want to get through more case studies today to show you. But if you'd like to hear some more, if you would like to ask us any more questions, I'm going to answer these in the chat now, but you can contact me. It's mack.hampson@soundcloud.com. I'll put that in the chat as well, so you can get in touch.
Sorry, I'll get there.
But yeah, thanks very much for your time today. I hope you found it useful.
Thank you guys so much. And Matt, Will, if you guys are around at all this weekend, feel free to pop into the participant chat and Slack and chat with them as well. I'm sure they love to chat with you. They have tons of questions. Really appreciate it, guys.